Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm Jon Favreau.
I'm Priya-Zempic Jon Lovett.
I'm Tommy Vietor.
On today's show, Joe Biden gets some rough polling as he prepares for his debt ceiling showdown with Republicans. Donald Trump offers no defense as a jury decides the rape and defamation case against him. Tucker Carlson goes to war with Fox News, and Diane Feinstein is still MIA as Clarence Thomas scandals pile up. Then later, the host of Pod Save the UK, Nish Kumar, talks to Tommy about King Charles' coronation and a whole bunch of other stuff.
We talked coronation. We talked about politics. They just had a bunch of elections. What does that mean for the Labour Party? There's a lot of shared challenges right now between the Labour Party and the UK. That's pundit hacking up a bone. Between the Labour Party in the UK and the Democratic Party over here. And we, misery loves company, so we talked about it.
So Tommy talks to Nish, and all of you should check out the very first episode of Pod Save the UK. It's up now.
The number one podcast in the UK.
The number one podcast in the UK. It is funny. It is insightful. It is a joy to listen to. Please go subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check out the first episode. All right, let's get to the news. Joe Biden got a suboptimal poll from the Washington Post and ABC over the weekend that has him losing to Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis among all adults by 7 points, 49 to 42% for Trump and 48 to 41% for DeSantis. That's if you push leaners, people who are leaning one way or the other. The president's approval is at a record low of 36% in the poll, which is down from 42% in February. And 63% say he doesn't have the mental sharpness to serve effectively as president. That's up from 43% in 2020. Not great news in the poll for Trump either. A majority think he's a liar who should face multiple criminal charges. Though about a quarter of all independents who support charging Trump said they would still vote for him over Biden. I'd like to talk to some of those people.
Yeah, the people that he should be in jail and president. Really just dumbfounding. That's your independent swing voter for you, you know? And we love him. God love him.
God love him. God love him. Yeah.
Make the world go around.
You think they're listening? Anyway, great news. No. Any evidence this is an outlier?
I feel like you just recited some.
Does anyone want to unskew the poll?
Yeah, but first of all, we should stipulate that we don't yell at polls here. They're inanimate objects. They did nothing wrong. They did nothing to you. They're just data sets.
Yeah, here's what I would also say. Unskew so you can sleep at night, but spend all day thinking that they're pretty real.
But if we were to yell at some polls, it is weird that 56% say that Trump should face criminal charges, but 49% say they'd vote for him. That seems challenging to make work math-wise.
Other sort of, I don't know. I wouldn't say it unskews the poll, but gives you reason to believe that it's less. It's you can step back off the ledge a tiny bit. Is that it says he has 26% approval among under 30, 42% among non-whites, 41% among urban residents, 46% amongst those with no religious affiliation. These would be people that may not approve of the job Joe Biden is doing right now, but these are don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative types. That was my one sign for hope. What do you got? I'm looking for something here. It's a very bad poll.
Trump's winning young people, Biden's winning old people. That doesn't make a lot of sense either. It's all just sort of weird. It's confusing.
Here's what you do. Throw it in the average.
Yeah.
Throw it in the average.
Okay.
538 it.
538 it.
Well, yeah. We were going to do that
can.
after the conversation, but we still got stuff to do before the mattress ad.
So the average has Biden's approval. It's steady around 42, 43%. Mm-hmm. So no sudden upticks or downticks in the approval rating for Biden. So it's a little higher than the 36% in this poll. Though, the Quinnipiac poll, in terms of like high quality polls, first of all, there haven't been many for 2024 yet. But the Quinnipiac has him at like 37. The Wall Street Journal NBC one had him at 42. So it's in the range. The difference is that Biden's horse race number is higher in those other polls than it is here, and Trump's is higher. Now, they did push leaners. At the regular poll was like, I think Trump only got 45 or 46% when they didn't push leaners. And 45, 46% is what Trump has received in the last two elections.
Yeah, you said that this doesn't have a lot of good news for Trump either, which is true, but it sort of fits with where Trump always is, which is just he always has very bad polling. That kind of fits with where this was at. The one thing that I pulled out that I did think was worth talking about is it said 33% say Trump is honest, 63% say he's not. That is where Trump has always been on the honesty mark, but Biden is only at 41% saying that he's honest and trustworthy, while 54% say he's not. In the lead up to 2020, that was if not flipped, close to it. And that has been dropping pretty steadily. And to me is like a really, like put aside the actual kind of horse race numbers, the comparisons, all the rest, the fact that there's been that drop in honesty and trustworthiness, when that is, I think, one of his big selling points and one of the ways he's sort of ridden sort of waves of disapproval was alarming to me.
I got to check with Obama because I do think that for a lot of presidents, their honest and trustworthy numbers tend to go down over the course of the 8. Do you have an AI thing ready?
Oh no! Imagine if I just had
you had the face
soundboard.
that you have when you're ready to introduce a bit to us, which I was really excited.
Yeah, I mean, look, it has been steadily going down, and that is probably just a result of people just being disappointed with the difference between what a candidate sounds like and what a president sounds like, which is of course true. But like, you look at Obama over 8 years, and even when his disapproval dropped, there were certain metrics of his sort of personal likability that kind of stayed buoyant, which was a protection against people like Mitt Romney, for example. And I don't know, that was just nerve-wracking to me.
So easily could be a bad sample, bad poll, or could be right. We don't know. The RCP average has Trump leading by 1. With this poll in it. So either way, it's going to be a close fucking race.
That's a long time.
Right? Like,
a lot of undecideds.
Trump is once again around 45, 46, right? When you don't push leaners, which is always where he's been. And if it's just Trump and Biden, then, probably a little better for Biden. But again, we get third parties in there, and suddenly it could be 2016 again, and Trump doesn't have to get much higher than 45 or 40% to still win.
That RFK Jr. magic.
Also,
or fucking no labels and whether they're going to Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema or someone else.
And a lot of the drop in here is not just independents, but Democrats.
Yeah, that one's probably most easily fixable.
I will say, it's hard to, the 60% saying he's doesn't have the acuity, viewing Trump as having being more kind of up to the job.
Yeah, I was going to say, that made me a little more nervous than the honest and trustworthy ones even.
I don't like either.
Yeah.
Neither's great.
I mean, instead of just complaining about what we don't like about this poll, that's easy enough to do.
Well, that part's over.
We got any advice? Any advice for the Biden campaign as they look at these numbers?
I think that ultimately Joe Biden is going to have to say, things are better, but they're not perfect. I know you don't love me, but these guys are crazy. Like look over there. They're going to destroy the economy with the debt ceiling. They're going to do nothing to stop gun violence. They're going to take your freedoms away. The key is the choice. It's Joe versus the wackos. And when we don't have a Republican nominee yet, it's very hard to do that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think Trump, it's, I think like the political press and a lot of people that are very engaged are paying attention to the ongoing legal machinations, but there's nothing compared to a campaign. And he really is out of the limelight in a lot of ways. And you see the kind of, even in this poll, like just like places where his just approval rating has gone back up. Like he had this sort of immovable approval on the economy that basically stayed pretty high up until the pandemic and then started dropping. And now it's kind of back up to where it was pre-pandemic. And all of this is it's I hate to say it, like absence makes the heart grow fonder, and it sucks, but.
Oh, you said with Trump?
With Trump, yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell. I mean, I feel like opinions about Trump are pretty hardened, but that the campaign is going to hinge on reminding people how awful he is, right? Which is not hard to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes he just opens his mouth and does it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of, like you said, legal issues that he's dealing with that will, again, shine a light on who he is as a person. I think for Biden, Tommy's right that it's all a choice. It's all about why Trump is crazy. It's all about why the Republicans are extreme. But in terms of his own personal style, I think Biden's got to really flood the zone with being in people's faces all the time. Like I think that stepping back when you're the challenger to Donald Trump and Donald Trump's president, and you don't Biden's just the alternative to what you don't like right now. I think that works. I think it's tougher when you're the incumbent, as Joe Biden is, and if there's a lot of people who they only hear from Joe Biden when there's some right-wing TikTok of him seeming old, then they're going to have a bad opinion of him, right? And I think the only way to combat that is Joe Biden out there all the time, showing some energy, being loose, being with people, right? He's really good one-on-one with people, and whether it's town halls, whether it's meeting people on rope lines. Like, I think all of this, if I was running a campaign, this is what I would, and I'm sure the Biden people are thinking about all this, like, this is what I would do. We were just talking about the Correspondence Center speech last week, and his delivery was really good, and he
Yeah.
was having fun. And also when he's in fighting mode too, when he's like talking about Donald Trump, talking about the threats to democracy, he tends to have a lot of energy there too. I think that reminds people that he's got a fighting spirit too. Like I think there's ways to help combat the perception that he is, too old.
Yeah, I'm sure they're very frustrated because I think the economy has added 13 million jobs, or just shy of 13 million jobs since he took office. Unemployment is at record lows, like 3.5%. You're reading all these announcements about companies literally opening manufacturing plants in Georgia and other places because of tax credits in the IRA, but he doesn't seem to be getting any credit for it. Yeah. So I agree with you. He's got to be out more. I do think it's good advice, but I think there's limits to how many people are actually going to hear about these stories just because of the way the media works.
So hard.
So,
that's why it's just a volume.
I should be like big shoes.
You got
big shoes.
It's quantity at some point, right? Because it is so getting attention, even when you're president of the United States in this media environment, it's just harder,
Yeah.
And doing a typical event where you're just going and touting some manufacturing jobs, like it's just that won't get you the attention anymore. You got to keep, and I think it's not only what Joe Biden has done, but that he continues to show this like fighting spirit on behalf of working people. He did this today. On Monday, he announced new regulations with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg that would require airlines to compensate customers beyond a ticket refund if there's a delay or canceled flight.
Love this.
This.
This is good stuff.
They should do some fun stuff with this to, again, really get it some attention.
I love the fee stuff.
People aren't going to know that. Now, the problem is it's not going to take effect for like months, if years, because it's
Sure.
going to go through the rule-making process. The rule-making process. I love it.
It's a great idea. Integrated character IP life enhancement via airlines.
That's good.
Gated communities, infinite freedom.
Don't just give me a voucher.
Buttigieg.
Fork over some extra.
I love that.
Cash.
Go to an airport.
Why didn't we do more of this? Going after these terrible monopolistic companies is a great idea. Do it every day, Joe Biden.
We did a passenger bill of rights, but it didn't quite go as far as this. We did the if airlines overbook and that you get kicked off a plane because of the overbooking. Then they have to pay you like double the money.
And we said they couldn't leave you on the tarmac for more than 8 hours or something. So
there was that JetBlue flight that went fully kind of Lord of the Flies.
But Biden out there fighting against corporations on behalf of working people over and over again. That's good stuff.
Yes,
that's good stuff.
And just let's get him out there meeting people between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That's the sweet spot.
Goddamn.
Get him out there. Sun shining, birds chirping, ice cream in his hand.
And he should be joking about his age all the time.
Yeah.
He did it at the Correspondence Center. He should do it some more.
I'm older than the trees.
He said something about his 280-year career.
That's great.
The other day, which is really fun. Do that.
Funny.
That's
I like
great. All right. Donald Trump still has a few bumps on his road back to the White House. New York Times reports that in the classified documents investigation, Special Counsel Jack Smith has obtained cooperation from a secret witness who worked at Mar-a-Lago, and he's also issued a new wave of subpoenas, including for records related to Trump's business dealings with Saudi Arabia.
His name? Juan Jr. With a little mustache. Don Jr. You get it.
That's funny. Also, after the leader of the Proud Boys and 3 others were convicted of seditious conspiracy, Congressman Jamie Raskin told Jen Psaki over the weekend that Trump could absolutely face the same charges. And jurors have just heard closing arguments in the rape and defamation case brought by the writer E. Jean Carroll against Trump, who not only turned down a second last-minute chance to testify, but presented no defense in the case whatsoever.
None.
Well, just so people understand, so the reason there was this second chance to testify is that when he was opening up a golf course in Scotland, he did the thing he always does, which is, I could testify, happily testify, love to testify. And then the judge was like, okay.
And even they said, I'm coming back home. I got to go back home to testify.
Yeah, I have to leave the country early. I have to leave Ireland early or wherever I have to go testify. And the judge was like, okay.
Well, you weren't going to do that.
Yeah.
And then the judge's like, okay, tell me by 5 p.m. if you're going to want to testify.
No.
And they're, no, of course not. What are you, crazy?
Very strange.
So the jurors did get to watch video of Trump's deposition from October, which we have some clips from. Let's listen.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the pussy?
Well, that's what it's. If you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
When you said in that video that Ms. Leeds would not be your first choice, you were referring to her physical looks, correct?
Just the overall. Not. I look at her. I see her. I hear what she says. Whatever. You wouldn't be a choice of mine either, to be honest with you. I hope you're not insulted. I would not, under any circumstances, have any interest in you. I'm honest when I say it.
It's just he's such an
So
awful
disgusting.
human
Unfortunately or fortunately, that
being. I mean, a lot of these are things he said before, but he just compounds it any way he can by just being the most disgusting human being in these depositions.
it's things he said before, but I will just say, I know that we're all inured to this now because we've had a lot of years of Donald Trump. But let's remember when the Access Hollywood tape comes out and Donald Trump actually gives the live on-air apology he does that is, and he, this is not what I meant, blah, blah, blah. Now it's just like January 6th. He's long gone past, I didn't say that, or that was just a joke. And now he says, oh no, what I said was true.
Yeah.
What I said was true, and it was good. It was good. That's what you do get to do that if you're a celebrity.
When he makes it worse, and he insults the lawyer, and it sounds awful.
We'll leave the legal consequences of Trump's actions to juries of his peers. It does seem like the political consequences of all these cases could be a bit more damaging for Trump than the hush money case. But what do you guys think of all these developments that have popped up recently?
There's a lot of, certainly this conversation we're having right now reminds you there's just a ton of legal uncertainty swirling around him as a person, around the campaign. And the fact that DeSantis and all the other opponents can't seem to get it together to leverage not just what he actually did, but the kind of political risk is, another indictment of how bad they are running against him.
Yeah, I'd also just say that deposition interview footage always looks bad.
Really bad.
It has that just sort of
feel to it.
It has a feel to it,
Yeah.
as does all kind of hidden camera footage. Always kind of feels bad. I don't know what the impact of this this specific case will be, a year and a half from now. But what are his two lowest moments as a candidate and president? I'd say one of them is around the Access Hollywood tape. I'd say the three lowest moments. One is Access Hollywood. Second is the healthcare vote, and the third is the insurrection. You'd probably say those are the three.
I definitely include
Good
trying
ones.
to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power.
100%. I don't even mean, obviously, but I mean in terms of like the public reaction to him, where, like we just talked about how robust and how stable his polling always is, and like what are the things that managed to kind of like pull that clothesline down a little to weigh it down? It was Access Hollywood, it was healthcare, and it was the insurrection, and this is as bad as that ever was, even though we are all fucking desensitized to it.
I realize that this is incredibly hackish of me, but when I saw that deposition footage, my first thought was
Ads.
Democratic Super PAC. If
There
I
we
was a
go.
Democratic Super PAC out there, I would throw some of that deposition footage in an ad and test it first, test it in front of voters, focus groups, see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I would bet, particularly after talking to Celinda Lake on this show a couple weeks ago, that this would break through. She said that this case is breaking through in a lot of her research, especially among women, especially among young women. And it's not, it says something about our society, of course, that it's not getting as much coverage as the hush money case. I realize it's a civil lawsuit, not criminal, but it's a pretty big deal if a jury decides that a former president is a rapist for the first time.
Yeah, I think it's getting less coverage because it's just different phases of the trial. Similarly, in the Mar-a-Lago case, I've always wondered whether people would really care whether or not he took classified documents. But when you start to read about how the FBI is they're talking to his staff to see if they were directed to hide or move things after the subpoenas came through, or if they deleted footage of what happened, that feels like a big deal. Like Jack Smith is flinging subpoenas like a blackjack dealer down there. Like the whole staff has now been subpoenaed. Both of the Calamaris. Who can forget the Calamaris?
It's a double calamari.
Matthew Calamari,
I think
Senior and Junior.
I think the plural calamari is calamari.
I think you might be right. Here's my favorite.
I think one of them is a calamaro.
My favorite anecdote from this New York Times story about the Mar-a-Lago case was, among the information they have gathered in interviews concerned his habit of flushing material down toilets, according to a person familiar with the matter. And I just love the idea of some very serious FBI agent asking questions, be like, number one.
So this goes down the shitter as well.
If it's a yellow, let it mellow. Okay. Number two.
Tommy, can you give us your take on the
that's right.
the potential Saudi connection here? It was just sort of slipped in
That's
as
weird.
Paragraph 20 of the New York Times story. It's like, oh, by the way, there's a subpoena for Trump's business dealings with the Saudis over their golf venture.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. And I've never really believed
You want to red string it for us?
Yep. They never really believed that Trump took a bunch of classified documents to sell them to some other country or anything like that. But if you were looking for a way to trade this information to, let's say, the Saudi government for cash, it does seem like having the Live golf tournament host a bunch of matches or whatever they're calling them, they call it something different, at his clubs would be a great way to launder that money.
Great way to get his beak wet.
Unbelievable.
We didn't even also talk about the fact that they've given immunity to a bunch of the fake electors.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
in Georgia.
Those people,
they all got immunity deals.
They got immunity, so what do they know? And why are we giving, and where...
Fannie Willis isn't giving out immunity for free.
And what those people did was very serious, very illegal, and very wrong. And so, who are the people you're going after? There's not very many above the electors that aren't named Donald Trump.
As Tommy pointed out, one person who's still not taking advantage of any of this is Ron DeSantis, who's busy dealing with more of his own bad press. ABC obtained video of Tiny D's debate prep sessions from his 2018 race for governor, where an advisor suggested that when he gets to the podium, he should write the word likable in all caps at the top of his notepad. You can also see Matt Gaetz telling DeSantis to tone it down during prep, and DeSantis struggling with how to avoid pissing off Trump's voters. Let's listen.
Has the NRA donated to me? I don't think the NRA is quite the boogeyman the Democrats think it is. Do we hit them on guns, or just everyone who cares about guns is going to vote for me?
Is there any issue upon which you disagree with President Trump?
Obviously there is, because I voted contrary to him in the I have to frame it in a way that's not going to piss off all his voters. So what I do is I do what I think is right. I support his agenda in terms of what he's been able to do. If I have a disagreement, I talk to him in private.
I think when you walk up there, if you have a pad, you have to write in all caps at the top of the pad, likable. And just look, I do the same thing because I have the same personality. We're both aggressive.
I do the same thing.
Do the same thing.
Do you guys think it's a good sign for your political prospects when the person advising you on likability is Matt Gaetz?
Matt Gaetz is dressed like he's going to go sell nitrous balloons at a Dave Matthews concert. He's wearing like
Nirvana
rainbow
t-shirt, flip-flops,
and a too-tight
very
t-shirt.
schlubby.
Matt Gaetz is telling you to tone it down?
Yeah, that's
this
it.
fucking guy?
Matt Gaetz is like, here's how to be likable.
Can we just be honest?
Take it from me, Matt Gaetz.
It's not bad advice. It's
No.
such pretty good advice from Matt Gaetz. The whole thing seems kind of normal and more reasonable, and I don't know. Even DeSantis kind of seems smarter about politics, but he comes off as very angry about
That fucking
everything.
voice of his. Meh.
You might say he comes off as a little sanctimonious.
He comes across like the Mars Attacks aliens. Ack. It reminded me of something, which is the way in which they're trying to corral this fucking humorless, stale-voiced, whiny, awful personality candidate into being a likable politician. When I was first working on the Hill, I worked for a senator named Jon Corzine, much more likable than Ron DeSantis, but he was like a finance guy. Public speaking was not his forte, and they very early on they wanted him to come up with jokes or be funny, and they brought me into a kind of speech prep. And I just remember realizing how far we were from jokes, because one of the pieces of advice was, it would be helpful if you stopped rolling up the speech and using that to scratch your beard while you're talking.
Write that one at the top of the notepad.
Yeah, that's what that reminded me of. Yeah,
But saying "write likable" on your notepad is so goddamn funny. It's terrible advice.
Well,
you can't just be you can remind yourself to be likable. You are or you are not.
When George H.W. Bush was running against Bill Clinton was obviously more likable and seemed more compassionate and more able to relate to people. And so there's a famous moment where George H.W. Bush says something about grocery prices, and he goes, "Message, I care." And that was not the part. That was subtext. He was supposed to. That was supposed to show, not tell.
It was like saying your name here.
Yeah.
I think that there was something revealing when Gaetz is telling him, "Oh, you were too aggressive," in what you just said. What he was referring to is, during debate prep, remember back in the 2018 race, at one point, DeSantis says, "All right, Florida, don't monkey this up by voting for Andrew Gillum." And everyone took it as a racist statement. And so in debate prep, they hit him with that. They hit DeSantis with that. And he basically was like, yeah, I was pretty hot in response to that. But what I learned from Kavanaugh is you can never even show a hint of weakness on these things or even seem apologetic at all. You've just got to just go hard and seem angry. And that's the only way to do it, because otherwise our base will think that we're weak. And that is the lesson that all of them have learned.
Yeah.
That is the whole lesson of the Trump era. Never apologize, act like an asshole, and you can get through it. It's just, but he sounds so whiny. He's
a big whiner, and he's resting dumb face. And the whole thing, I mean, it's a weird debate staff. I mean, Matt Gaetz is running your debate prep. That's just a strange decision.
Yeah. And now he's for Trump. So
yeah. Well, I mean that must worry them. I mean, these kinds of tapes leaking. I don't know if I've ever heard of that happening before. That's a pretty big breach.
Like debate prep is like kind of like
yeah.
an inner circle kind of sacred space. That
very
shit
much
doesn't
so.
leak.
So and Gaetz goes from DeSantis guy to Trump supporter, sycophant. DeSantis had a big split with Susie Wiles, who was running his campaign at the time. She's now working for Trump. I would be sitting there thinking, oh my God, what else are they sitting on?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Big week in D.C. Joe Biden has his first debt ceiling meeting with the 4 top leaders in Congress at the White House today. Just in time. A couple weeks away from default.
Yeah, Janet Yellen is just white knuckling on a toilet somewhere. Just fucking anxiety for fucking days. She is not.
Why is she on a toilet?
Janet Yellen hasn't had a solid shit in 2 weeks.
Oh my God!
I'm just saying she's anxious. She's
You
worried
can't hear
about
that on any other podcast. No other media. You're not getting that on MSNBC.
Oh my God.
This comes after 43 Republican senators signed a letter over the weekend saying they will not support a debt ceiling increase without substantial cuts of the kind the House passed. Meanwhile, Kevin McCarthy and leadership aides are trying to tamp down expectations within their caucus about what would constitute a win for Republicans, since his most extreme members are saying they won't vote for anything less than the House bill. Are we just headed for either default or a less crazy version of the House bill? Is it still possible at this point for Biden to get a clean increase? Is any kind of deal possible? What do you guys think?
First of all, the Senate, to get 43 Senate Republicans together to say anything close to this, it had to be vague and purposely vague. So what they say is they're united behind the House Republican Conference in support of spending cuts and structural budget reforms as a starting point for negotiations on the debt ceiling. That leaves a lot of room to maneuver. And then they won't vote for anything. They won't vote for cloture on any bill that raises the debt ceiling without substantive spending and budget reforms, which also gives you a lot of space. 50 Shades of Grey, the starting point was fan fiction about Twilight. You can go very far from your starting point. It's just something to think about.
Though it was vague, but still, they didn't get Romney, Collins, or Murkowski to sign on to that letter.
They didn't. You're right.
So I don't know.
They got 40. I feel like they got above 40 and they patted themselves on the back.
I think what the Republicans have done, which is smart here in the Senate, is they're like, we cannot leave. At least at this point, we can't leave McCarthy out to dry. He got this passed through the House. We got to lock arms with McCarthy. We can't have any daylight between the Senate and the House Republicans. Otherwise, we're not going to get anything out of Biden. To me, that seems what that letter is about.
Yeah, I think McConnell's basically saying that too. I mean,
anyway, I don't know if it's. I'm sorry. I would say it's getting this off. This says where the Senate Republicans are. I don't know that this is something that puts any more pressure on Biden than what he already was facing. But I think publicly it answers the mail on what McConnell's been getting asked over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm just still caught up on that, previous comment about
Jessica
Secretary of the
Yellen?
Treasury. I mean, I guess good news, bad news. Good news, you can't really get much worse than a $1.5 trillion debt limit extension for less than a year for $5 trillion in cuts. So. Baby steps to better. Who knows?
Well, I know. Well,
I still don't see a path forward, though.
The reason I mentioned the on the McCarthy side, what we saw in Playbook today, that he's tamping down expectations, is there were some senior Republican aides in the House who were like, if we just get the unspent COVID funds and permitting reform, that's a win. And I'm like, really? Yeah. Oh no, don't get that.
Yeah,
that'd be horrible. We can't give that up.
It's a reminder that like. With the House Republicans, some of them play crazy, some of them aren't crazy, and some of the ones that play crazy are just like a little bit nervous with some of the ones that are, hey, like I'm visiting this asylum. I don't fucking live here with you people. Yeah.
I do think though, like I don't see a clean increase happening at this point, because forget about the 43 Republicans. You also got Joe Manchin you're dealing with in the Senate. Forget about the House at this point. Getting a clean increase through the Senate seems like it's very difficult at this point.
I also think a lot of this is semantics. Like I don't know what for example, we don't know what's going to come out of a conversation with McCarthy and Biden tomorrow, but one thing potentially is some sort of a framework that is a short-term debt ceiling extension with some kind of cap on spending that kicks you to a negotiation over government shutdown. Plus that Biden gets to call that a clean raise to get you to the negotiation.
The two-track strategy.
It's right. And so, but like, did Biden get a clean debt limit increase in that case? Yes, no. I think the semantics fall apart when you tie it to another negotiation.
We need a bipartisan coalition of reporters, TV broadcasters, podcasters to come together and say, we're sick of talking about this. It is so boring. It makes us want to die. Please just fix it so we don't have to talk about it.
You know who's going to help us with that? Our audiences.
People keep saying it. People keep saying it's boring. I'm interested.
I think the gamesmanship is kind of interesting.
I think it's fascinating. It's
a
real.
lot of game theory stuff.
It's game theory.
Oh my
it's
God.
real negotiations.
Who are you
It's
two?
real stakes.
What happened to my friends?
I think what's also exciting to me about a two-track strategy is you get to do something.
God.
You get to do something that's, I think, classically American, which is you kick the can down the road and raise the stakes. Which is a classic American
the
move.
can, raise the stakes.
Procrastinate and make it worse.
We're at season 6 and everyone's lost the plot. It's Westworld all over again.
It's Westworld all over again.
Westworld all over again.
It's all again.
Anyway.
Your mind is the scene of the crime.
Speaking of entertainment.
Different thing.
Axios reports that Tucker Carlson is about to go to war with Fox News in order to get out of his contract, which is basically paying him $20 million to not work for any competitor or himself until 2025. Tucker's apparently thinking about starting his own media venture. He's approached Elon Musk about working together.
Of course he did.
And a friend said that when it comes to Fox, Tucker, quote, knows where a lot of bodies are buried and is ready to start drawing a map.
They keep saying this thing that, like, what fucking bodies over there? What do we not know about this heinous right-wing fascist organization?
It's going to be actual bodies.
Like, is it actual corpses? Because it actually, what it feels like, what Fox News feels like right now.
They bury Roger Ailes under the newsroom.
Like how it's felt watching this over the last 6 months is like a graveyard after a hurricane, and all the bodies have kind of come fully up already. What bodies are left? I'm crushing it today.
God,
I'm crushing it today.
Here's what I know.
What do you know?
Every generation needs a hero. Your Ellsberg's Daniel.
Oh my God.
Your Brockovich's Aaron.
All right.
You could be that, Tucker. Serpico in a bow tie. Tell the truth.
The way in which Aaron Brockovich, Serpico, and Ellsberg are so different, and just different analogies.
Tell the truth. Tell your truth, Tucker.
Tommy, I have a different take.
Oh wow.
I want Fox News to win this one.
I'm with you.
You've always been a Fox fan. The Jesse
no,
Waters gets you?
Because to Lovett's point, what else is Tucker really going to do to Fox that they haven't already done to themselves through various depositions and discovery processes over the last several months? But if Fox can somehow stop Tucker from having a platform for the next 2 years, I think that's a win for all of us.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I want Fox to just hold the line on this
fascist
non-compete.
We're with you, Murdochs.
Keep the faith.
Jokes aside, I think what I'm most interested in all of this is which mainstream media outlets are willing to uncritically print everything Tucker's lawyer says. Bodies are buried. I got bare-knuckle brawlers standing by to fight.
Allies, friends, sources close to Tucker.
Everyone is offering Tucker money. I mean, the amount of posturing going on in these news stories that are just going unquestioned is notable.
Yeah. One of the reports was said that Daily Wire was like, I've been waiting for the fucking Tucker Carlson caravan and the Ben Shapiro caravan. Those people should meet in the middle.
I mean, Tucker Carlson will wind up on a Rumble or a Daily Wire type outlet. I think the question really is whether his non-compete prevents him from going to
60 Minutes,
a news,
Washington, New York Times column. Cancel culture run amok this week at the New York Times.
Pamela Paul and Tucker Carlson have a conversation.
They're doing one of those chats.
I was watching CBS Sunday Morning because I'm 75 years old.
Of course you
this
were.
weekend.
How do you even get that thing? Do you have rabbit ears?
And they had George Will doing a puff piece on Henry Kissinger, and I was like, what era am I living in? Yeah, I tweeted
you saw that too?
I did not see it. No. I saw Tommy tweet about it though.
Sorry to do that to you.
Anyway. Yeah, I agree. I'd like anything that keeps Tucker Carlson quiet for a while, I'm for.
But you know what? Go at each other. Burn the whole conservative ecosystem.
My point is just quiet is kind of is going to be a range, because I do think he's going to have a podcast on Rumble or something like that. He's going to do something. It's a question of whether he's on Newsmax or he's a non-compete.
Tweet a video and Elon will just
juice it,
promote it. Today's presenting sponsor is Simply Safe Home Security. It's Mother's Day. If you think about it, is there any bigger protector in life than moms?
No.
That's why moms love Simply Safe Home Security, guys. Game knows game. Oh my God. So this Mother's Day, get the award-winning 24/7 protection for your home and loved ones. Here's why we love Simply Safe.
Simply Safe is great. You set it up, you put in the sensors that you need, you can customize it, and then it works perfectly and is completely reliable, and the app is fantastic.
They got Fast Protect technology for fast response, enables monitoring agents to visually verify the threat is real, and conveys eyewitness evidence to 911 dispatch for fast police or fire response. You're in control from anywhere, anytime. You can arm or disarm the system remotely on your phone. You can look at the cameras, unlock the front door to let guests in. It's easy to set up, or you can choose professional installation, and there's no reason to wait. With financing through Affirm, secure your home today and pay over time in installments that fit your budget. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/crooked. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off your order with interactive monitoring. That's simplysafe.com/crooked. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Pod Save America is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. A lot of great activist groups and organizations out there trying to make a real difference, whether it's Human Rights Campaign, Black Lives Matter, Teach for America. To keep these organizations going strong, it takes a team of skilled, dedicated people who excel in their various roles, from program manager to digital media specialist. Whether you're hiring for a nonprofit team or hiring for a business, you need the most qualified people. That's why you need ZipRecruiter. And right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/crooked. ZipRecruiter uses smart matching technology to find and send you candidates whose skills and experience match your job. You can easily review the candidates that ZipRecruiter sends to you. And if you're really interested in any of them, you can invite them to apply to your job with one click. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site based on G2 satisfaction ratings as of December 13, 2022. Reach the people you want to hire with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to this exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free. ZipRecruiter.com/crooked. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/CROOKED. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. Pod Save America is brought to you by Squarespace. It's hard to build a brand, as you guys know.
Straight shooter, widely respected on both sides.
You
Whatever happened to that one?
You got to say it enough. You just got to say it enough.
You just got to repeat.
But what you need if you're building a brand is you need to start with a website that works.
That's true.
You can't be healthcare.gov in it, you know?
That didn't help.
Yeah, you don't want your brand to be that your website stinks.
You don't want a website that's as messy as politics, whether you're collecting donations for your favorite cause or marketing your news podcast. Squarespace helps you create an all-in-one platform to grow your business online through an engaging website where you can sell anything. Support your cause by gathering contributions with PayPal, Apple Pay, Stripe, or Venmo. With member areas, you can unlock a new revenue stream for your business and free up time in your schedule by selling access to gated content like videos or newsletters about the latest political hot topic. Squarespace's blogging tools allow you to share stories, photos, videos, and updates from the field. With Squarespace Analytics, you can even learn where your site visits and sales are coming from and analyze which channels are most effective. Use Squarespace email campaigns to collect email subscribers and convert them into loyal customers. Head to squarespace.com/crooked for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code CROOKED to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Pod Save America is brought to you by Bombas. Summer is better with Bombas. Their thoughtfully designed socks make your feet feel effortlessly at ease with comfort innovations like seamless toes. Seamless toes, that sounds great. Built-in arch support and cushioned ankle tabs to help prevent blister. I got some new shoes, blisters on the back.
Oh, man, I got some new shoes recently, and yes, similar deal. It's hurting.
And the low socks, if they're not Bombas, the low socks don't go up enough to really stop the blisters.
And you can kind of kick yourself on the side of the foot by accident.
Oh, that kind of hurts. Yep. Socks are the #1 most requested items in homeless shelters. That's why for every pair you purchase, Bombas donates another to someone who needs it. They make thoughtfully designed, better basics that keep you feeling your best all season long. On the trail, at the park, in your own backyard, every item is seamless, tagless, and effortlessly sold. Bombas are the socks you'll want to get dressed and move in every day. Their no-show socks are made with breathable yarns for a barely there feel, plus silicone grips and a contour designed to prevent slipping down or sliding around. Bombas' 100% happiness guarantee means you're covered for life. So far, Bombas has donated over 100 million items, and each purchase adds to that impact. We love Bombas socks.
They're very comfortable.
I have them. Emily has them. Charlie has them. We have them all over the family. If they made Bombas socks for Leo, we'd get them for Leo too.
What pundit would you wear socks? She says no.
They're very, very comfortable. That's why I love them the most. They're the comfiest socks that I own. Go to bombas.com/crooked and use code CROOKED for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/crooked and use code CROOKED at checkout. Bombas.com/crooked, code CROOKED. All right, finally, the list of Clarence Thomas scandals just keeps getting longer. Harlan Crow didn't just secretly pay for private jet rides, luxury yacht trips, and the home of Clarence Thomas's mother. The latest ProPublica bombshell says that Crow also paid the private school tuition for Thomas's grandnephew, and the Washington Post reports that Federalist Society goon Leonard Leo paid $25,000 to Ginny Thomas through Kellyanne Conway's polling company and asked that the paperwork have, quote, No mention of Ginny, of course. Can the Senate Judiciary Committee do anything about these scandals? Or any of the judicial nominations that are stuck in committee? Of course not, because Diane Feinstein is still absent. And Jake Tapper made a point about this to Dick Durbin over the weekend. Let's listen.
All due respect, sir, you and your fellow Democrats were very ginger and very polite when it came to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and not pushing her to retire when you had a Democratic majority in the Senate. How'd that work out for you? How'd that work out for Roe v. Wade?
Well, I can tell you that you can play these out and try to guess what the Supreme Court opinions resulting from it will be. The bottom line is, though, we have in the past had members of the Senate, I can think of a handful as I'm sitting here, Democrats and Republicans, who've been absent because of medical conditions for lengthy periods of time. I want to treat Diane Feinstein fairly. I want to be sensitive to her family situation and her personal situation. And I don't want to say that she's going to be put under more pressure than others have been in the past.
What is going on?
I will say this. So first of all, Dick Durbin is the person that has set off this. It was Dick Durbin's comments to CNN that set off the calls for Dianne Feinstein to retire. It was him telling a reporter, hey, I'm not going to be able to move judges through this committee. We're deadlocked in a bunch of shit. This is creating a real problem that set off the firestorm of people calling for her to retire. So I'm sensitive to the fact that clearly he is reacting to what the Feinstein people have been saying, which is she's not going to be forced out. He's trying to be delicate. But that being said, yikes.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all that. Probably people would have noticed. That's why the nominations were held up. They can count the votes on the committee at some point.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm saying he went out there. But I'm saying he went out there and kicked it up.
Well, he did in a very Dick Durbin way.
Look, all of this is in a very Dick Durbin way. The velvetiest of velvet gloves is that he is approaching all of this. I mean, this went viral because of Jake's question, not because of Durbin's answer.
I get that these people are all collegial and they're all friends in the Senate. I get it. You don't want to be nasty to someone who you've served with for 8 years, but like, fucking, there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot at stake.
Well, he goes on to say in that interview that when Feinstein put out in her statement that nothing is being held up, that he just doesn't agree with that her absence is being felt on the committee. They can't do these subpoenas for Harlan Crow or for Clarence Thomas. It is slowing down the nomination process. So he is saying that. I mean, look, I don't know why I'm defending Dick Durbin. Nobody's been...
biggest Dick Durbin defender
I don't know.
here.
I'm surprised by myself. No, but Dianne Feinstein should fucking retire.
The reason, like Durbin's sort of letter to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court about ethics, inviting him to come to the committee, was very frustrating and seemed incredibly feckless because it was.
Sadly, he RSVP'd no.
Right. Not only did he RSVP no,
will not attend.
He sent a scathing response. Was basically like, "How dare you even ask me?" Strict Scrutiny did a great episode on all these sort of ethics issues that you should listen. But the biggest challenge is because Feinstein isn't there, he can't issue a subpoena. They can't do anything. And so, listen, setting aside the whole Dianne Feinstein of it all, no one individual lawmaker's hurt feelings should take precedent over the work that we all send them there to do. And like the suggestion otherwise, this silly forced collegiality. She's 89 years old. Several years ago, there was a round of stories about her asking the same question at a hearing verbatim twice in a row. That's when people really started talking about this stuff.
I think the saddest part of this also is we've been in weeks and weeks of stories about a lot of people calling for her to retire, a lot of people questioning whether she's mentally fit and certainly whether or not she has the sort of physical stamina to ever return to the Senate. Through that entire period of time, she said, I will return, but will not give a date. That is really sad because it tells you that her health condition is very serious, that she cannot return to the Senate. So it is all very it is obviously human, and it is somebody who is afraid to have their final moments in public life be defined by their illness and calls to resign. That is obviously sad, but one person's ego and the staff's desire to protect that person's ego is not more important than confirming justices, getting these subpoenas out the door, and having full representation for California in the Senate. It's ridiculous.
And this isn't even potentially the worst of it. Like, Dianne Feinstein's making an argument that, look at how many judges they confirmed, and I this argument is like we're getting through all the judges that can be confirmed right now, but down the road there's going to be a roadblock of course there's going to be a roadblock without her on the committee. And then, of course, there's the Supreme Court stuff. But as Amy Klobuchar mentioned when she first talked about this, we need it for the debt ceiling too, potentially, right? If we get either Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, one of them to not be an asshole, and we required 51 Democrats to be there or 50 Democrats to be there plus Kamala Harris, and we don't have Diane Feinstein, that could be a real fucking problem.
Or it just sets one card against us even further of having to need every vote.
Ro Khanna tweeted about how because Senator Feinstein was absent, the Senate overturned a Biden rule that would cut pollution from heavy-duty trucks and cause all of us to breathe in worse air. I mean, that's a real that has happened in the past, and it's not just about confirming judges. I mean, they can spin this all they want, but that's not the extent of the problem. More broadly on these Clarence Thomas revelations, it's now like multiple stories about Clarence Thomas and ethics. There was a story about Justice Neil Gorsuch selling a law firm to a big selling real estate to a law firm that had a bunch of issues before the court. There's questions about Roberts' wife placing lawyers at big firms and maybe earning $10 million. I think what we're learning is that maybe decades and decades of really chummy coverage of Supreme Court that, ends up in book deals and people being friends has not really served us very well. And maybe we need a little more adversarial work here.
Subtweeting Nina Totenberg.
I'm not subtweeting.
Take that, Nina Totenberg. I'm with you.
Everybody.
I know.
We got to go a little harder at these folks.
Got to reform the court. That's the only way out. They're not going to make ethics rules for themselves. They're not going to be. They're clearly not embarrassed by any of the reporting. They don't feel shame on this stuff. They feel like they're above the law because the way that we've set up the system right now, they really are. Unless we have 60 votes in the Senate to pass some reforms or to expand the court or to put into place term limits.
Or we have enough senators to get rid of the filibuster. We can do it with a few more.
Or if we have enough senators to get rid of the filibuster and again, I would love it if Diane Feinstein could come back and we could subpoena Justice Roberts or Thomas
and then let them defy it.
Yeah, and then have them be answer for themselves on national television. Great. But real change, we got to fucking change the court.
The Clarence Thomas story about the tuition is, I thought, pretty funny because the only defense that it's not a gift for Clarence Thomas is that it was actually a gift to the child, which is really funny to think about a billionaire giving a suitcase full of cash to some kid so he can go to school. Like, as we all know, it's the child who pays tuition at school.
Well, I think that was, and Crow's statement in response to the story was like, how could you turn like his love of education into something political?
And I believe there's some
his love of education. Yeah,
it's all
education and Nazi memorabilia.
And I believe that Thomas did disclose when someone else paid for part of this kid's tuition. So this is just the most amazing thing about the Thomas revelations is it's even forcing reporters from the New York Times to be like, yeah, I looked at it, no ifs, ands, or buts, pretty illegal. Yeah, they have no way they can't spin it into a they said, he said, they said.
Every defense of
he said, they said, they said, they said.
Sure. Every defense of Crow giving all this money to Clarence Thomas in a variety of ways has fallen apart. For example, Crow gave an interview with the Dallas Morning News where he recounted how he first met Clarence Thomas, and it was Crow offering Clarence Thomas a ride home on his private jet. That's how they met.
They're just
on a private
they're
jet.
PJ buddies.
They're PJ buddies.
PJ buddies.
During that flight, we found out we were kind of simpatico.
I bet you did.
Billionaire says.
I bet you did.
That's a direct quote.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing too.
Saw my copy of Mein Kampf fall out of my bag. And...
Okay. He's a collector.
It's just a collection.
It was a statue of Hitler.
LA dad define over there.
It was a little those Statue of Liberty ones they sell at the airport in New York. It was a Hitler.
It was a
little Hitler. Fell out of his pocket. It's a paperweight for history.
I got this at an auction.
The funny thing too is it's like, oh, so you caught a ride on a billionaire's private jet and then you had a great discussion with him, paying for the privilege of being on that private jet with your conversation, earning your keep as an interesting guest aboard this private jet.
It's
gross. I say it's gross.
RBG should have retired.
And you know what? I'll tell you something else. We got shit for that. I wasn't one of these ginger people. I said RBG should retire.
How is this about you?
When was?
I'm not saying it's about me.
Who the fuck cares what you think about it?
Let me just say. I'm just saying I remember whenever you even hinted at the idea that RBG should retire, you were properly for notorious RBG. You were castigated at the time. I'm just saying. You look back at it.
Okay. Well, hopefully our producers can find some clips of you calling for the RBG retirement.
You can find it. Olivia, you can find it. Go to the archives. To the archives.
When we come back, Pod Save the UK host Nish Kumar talks to Tommy about his new podcast and King Charles's coronation. This episode of Pod Save America is brought to you by Cariuma, the cool sustainable sneaker company made for life on and off the board. What is the board? Oh, the surfboard. Warmer days are ahead.
Skateboard, John. Or the
skateboard. You're right.
Or corporate board.
Or the corporate board. Yeah.
Do you
Gotta
know
wear Cariumas if you're on the corporate board.
You know it's called Rumen board because you just have a big board and everybody would eat off of it?
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I guess get a chance to get out of the board.
Huh.
Sit at the board with it like it's on a stool or something.
Warmer days are ahead.
And it was chair of the board.
And we all need a staple shoe to carry us through summer and beyond.
Only the fancy people got a chair.
When it comes to days spent in the sunshine and on your feet, Cariuma's got you covered with effortless style. Effortless is hard to say. Unmatched comfort and premium quality worn by celebrities like Ashton Kutcher and praised by publications like Vogue and GQ. These are a cult fave. Talk about how much you love the shoe, not boards.
Love the shoes.
I love the shoes. You can wear them on or off boards.
I'm wearing them right now.
How do they look? Let's see. What color did you go with?
I went with white.
There we go. I have some gray at home, so I decided to get a little crazy, get some gray too.
Covering all your bases.
Aka is Cariuma's new school take on a timeless sneaker style. It's designed for everyday wear and with breathable organic cotton canvas in shades like green, off-white, and rose. It's the perfect pair to prep for summer. They're sure to have the perfect color for you. We've loved the lace-up Aka for years, and now Cariuma recently launched canvas slip-ons. Made with organic cotton and a natural rubber outsole, this easy-to-wear style provides a timeless look with incredible comfort and ease. It's everything you love about the Aka, now without the laces. Cariuma is always keeping it fresh with epic collaborations with brands like Deus, Avatar, and Pantone. There's something to love for everyone, and sure to be shoes you'll never get bored of. Cariuma is B Corp certified and has a dedicated reforestation program based in the Brazilian rainforest. Their co-founders, David and Fernando, both grew up there, so this project is especially close to home. For every pair of sneakers sold, Cariuma plants 2 trees, and they've already planted over 2 million trees to date. Cariuma ships all their sneakers free and fast in the USA and offers worldwide shipping and 60-day free returns. They deliver it right to your front door using single-box recycled packaging. And for a limited time, Pod Save America listeners can get an exclusive 15% off your pair of Cariuma sneakers. Go to cariuma.com/crooked to get 15% off. That's cariuma.com/crooked for 15% off, only for a limited time. Pod Save America is brought to you by Aura Frames. Do you take millions of photos only to let them sit in your phone or get lost in your files? I don't know about millions. Who's taking millions of photos? Whew. What if you could put all your photos, including those random camera roll pics, onto one gorgeous frame? You can with a connected frame from Aura. Named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter, The Strategist, and selected as one of Oprah's favorite things. Aura frames are guaranteed to make mom or grandma smile. An Aura frame brings all your photos and videos together in one stunning high-resolution display where mom can really enjoy them, aka not a group text or on social media. Ooh, tough hit on mom.
Yeah.
Preload any frame with meaningful memories and a special message that will appear as soon as it's set up. Invite the whole family to add to the frame and feel close from anywhere. Yeah, Aura's great.
It's very easy to set up.
Very easy to set up, especially if you get some older relatives. Maybe they don't, screw with technology too much. The Aura, just you give it to them and it's very easy, and they have beautiful pictures all the time.
Give them one photo and printed in a frame. That's the only one you got. With an Aura, you got infinity.
Yeah,
photos.
And then divorces happen. You want to send a picture without somebody in it.
Yeah.
Aura frames are divorce ready.
Photoshop it.
Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com/crooked. That's AURA frames.com/crooked. Use code crooked to get up to $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frames. This deal ends on May 14th, so don't wait. Terms and conditions apply. Pod Save America is brought to you by Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, but the actual total is closer to $200. If you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about, and chances are you're one of them. Like that Stars app just to watch one show, or that free gaming trial you never actually used. Rocket Money will quickly and easily find your subscriptions for you, And for any you don't want to pay for anymore, just hit cancel and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. It's that easy. Rocket Money also helps you manage all your finances in one place and automatically categorizes your expenses so you can easily track your budget in real time and also get alerted if anything looks off. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. I am one of them. I've used Rocket Money multiple times now because I used it once. Canceled a bunch of subscriptions, then they just built up again. I canceled them again. It's very easy to use, saves you a bunch of money, and saves you the time and hassle of going through and trying to figure out all the subscriptions you don't use. Stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/crooked. That's rocketmoney.com/crooked, rocketmoney.com/crooked.
All right, it's been a wild week in the United Kingdom, which is why I am so excited to welcome the co-host of Pod Save the UK to the show. Nish, it is so great to see you. You are #1 in the UK on Apple Podcast charts. Are you drunk with power right now?
I'm drunk with power and I'm drunk with alcohol, Tommy. I don't know how much you know about British culture, but when things go well, we get incredibly drunk. And when things go badly, we get incredibly drunk.
I love that. Let's all get pissed. Also, I want to clarify to all listeners in the UK that I'm wearing this hat with Pat the Patriot on it, not to be a troll, but because I need a haircut. So let's just get that on the table. Okay. King Charles had his coronation bash over the weekend. A lot of the stories I saw in the run-up to Saturday basically argued that nobody cared. First coronation since Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. There's a poll that said 64% of adults had no real interest in the ceremony. Did you end up watching, and do you think 64% of the country really just tuned this thing out?
I mean, I think that there remains like a section of the public for whom the royal family are an incredibly important part of their lives. And I don't know if I can speak to 64%. I mean, I think in terms of who watched it, it would probably be more than that, just sort of out of sheer curiosity. I think whether you care or not, there are a lot of people that just tuned in. I mean, literally because they sort of took over all the TV channels.
Right.
You know, like a supervillain does
yeah.
in a movie.
I have images of like BBC broadcasters kicking down your door and shoving a TV in your face to make you watch. Like, I love the BBC, but God, they love these royal events.
I couldn't agree with you more strongly on both of those things. Absolutely love the BBC, but yeah, they go hard. They've got a perma boner for the royal family and for coverage of the royal family.
This is why I love your show so much, because you guys had this really thoughtful academic on, and you were talking about federalism versus the monarchy. And I want to ask you more about that in a second, but you teed it up, I think, saying, but it's more difficult than just getting rid of these cousin fuckers, right? Which, you know, that kind of candor is the show for me. But before we get to that, there were a bunch of arrests of peaceful protesters. What happened there? When did London decide to outlaw peaceful protest on the streets?
This government has the sort of larger background to this is the government has passed a bill that specifically makes it more difficult to protest in this country. And some of that protest bill was on the back of some of the kind of climate protests that have been happening all over the world, but specifically in Britain, some of the climate protests that have been happening. The government have passed a bill, some of the terms of which allow police to set an appropriate level for protest, which I mean, I don't think anybody thinks is a good idea. But some of the new powers given to them in this protest bill seem to have been used on protesters. It's weirdly not actually just protesters that have been arrested. There were 3 people were arrested in Soho on Saturday on a conspiracy to commit public nuisance, and it transpires that those people were volunteers for a program run by Westminster City Council to distribute rape alarms to women who might be vulnerable travelling on their way home.
Oh my God.
And the reports that have come out today suggest that arresting officers claim that they were acting on some intelligence that those people were planning to set rape alarms off and throw them at the horses to make the horses go crazy. And this could not come at a worse time for the Met Police, whose reputation in terms of handling particularly female members of public is at an absolute all-time low, and with huge amounts of justification. So yeah, it was a very, very that's a very specific thing that's worth keeping an eye on as the days develop as to whether any charges are going to be brought. They've arrested, some protesters. They even arrested a journalist who was filming the protest and who sort of filmed himself being arrested in a kind of weird sort of Blair Witch found footage horror nightmare of being arrested simply for that, where he's trying to tell. You can see on the footage he's sort of saying to people, well, I'm a journalist, and the police are just sort of going, no, we'll crack on with this.
Yeah, we'll arrest you anyway. Yeah, every time we talk, I realize how similar our nation's problems are. It's getting that balance right of allowing protesters to do their thing has been a real challenge for us the last couple of years too. So the monarchy has existed for a very long time. That doesn't mean it's going to be around forever. On last week's Pod Save the UK, you and Coco had this great conversation with a scholar, and you talked to this Labour MP about what it would take to get rid of the monarchy. Now, the only kings we have here in the US are Elvis, LeBron, and Burger. So help us understand, how do we get rid of this family that just won't go away?
And let me say, as a representative of the United Kingdom, we would like to thank His Majesty the Burger King. Several of his embassies have opened throughout our country.
Oh, nice.
And we remain grateful. The interesting thing about having a conversation with someone like Amelia Hadfield, who's a politics professor that we talk to on the show, is that the mechanism for removing the royal family and moving to a republic is very complicated and would require almost certainly a referendum, which is, I think at this point, if you told the British people that they could either have a referendum or repeatedly be smashed with a cricket bat in the genitals, they would say, well, bring on the bat. Cricket's the most English of games. Let's crack on with this. Just because I think we may be referendumed out. But for people like Clive Lewis, who was the Labour MP that we spoke to, I think one of the most important things in the short term is actually a reform of the royal family. Because The Guardian has done a lot of really amazing reporting in the last couple of weeks to show the extent to which the Windsor family has essentially, they've sort of basically actively been fighting to prevent scrutiny into their financial affairs. And Prince Charles's net worth is sort of estimated to be in the £1.8 billion region. But the truth is, but the truth is, but Tommy, that's also an estimate, because they have fought any attempts to kind of really get full clarity on how much they earn. Just to set this in context, we know every single thing that every one of our MPs, who, like the royal family, are public servants, earns. We have the right to know that. We know, for instance, that our former health secretary, as we discussed when we had the chat on the bonus episode of the show, our former health secretary was paid £320,000 to go on a reality TV show where he ate bugs for a while. But we have the right to know that. We have the right to know how much, say, Gary Lineker is being paid, who's a kind of presenter of football highlights on the BBC, and who found himself kind of mired in a political row after he criticised the Borders and Migration Bill. And we have, because he works for the BBC, we know how much the BBC pays him, because the idea is we pay that money. And so the idea that the royal family is able to be opaque about its finances when they take money from the public purse is something that I think in the short term, I think a lot of people, regardless of how they feel about the ongoing institution, feel should happen so pretty urgently.
Yeah, sounds like our Supreme Court. Seems like there's some transparency needed here. Before we move on, have you seen this Twitter theory that people who believe that Meghan Markle actually did attend the coronation, despite saying she was sticking around in California? There was a 79-year-old man named Sir Carl Jenkins. Apparently he's a composer. He's got long white hair. He's got a mustache. He's got glasses. Your classic disguise getup. And many people are saying that Meghan Markle just snuck in dressed like this 79-year-old white dude. Care to comment?
Yes, look, I'm afraid to say Sir Carl Jenkins is an extremely talented composer. Unfortunately, he has chosen a moustache and haircut and glasses combination that makes it look like Sacha Baron Cohen is doing some sort of Borat-style prank movie. It is deeply unfortunate. and he was pictured at the coronation. And yeah, I understand that there is a theory that people are saying Meghan Markle disguised. If anything, it would be fitting that the most high-profile member of the royal family, who is a person of colour, had to disguise themselves as a white man to get into the coronation. If anything, there'd be something like deeply apt about that. But I'm pretty sure even if Meghan Markle tried to get in heavily disguised, there'd be some sort of alarm that would have been set off. I think they might have put a chip in her. And if she'd set foot anywhere near the crowd, a bunch of alarms would have gone off, and the Metropolitan Police would have thrown her in jail with the other, criminal elements, such as people trying to give women rape alarms.
I love this because, the absurdity of this theory did not stop the New York Post from writing it up. So that's how I read all about it. Well,
I understand the New York Post is, I believe, at least philosophically, the bastard child of the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom. And I guess both of those newspapers have had a tenuous relationship with the truth of the past.
Tenuous at best. Okay, so back to a little more serious stuff. So England just had some local elections.
Yes.
In the U.S., I think it'd be the equivalent of kind of like a city council or mayoral type position. But they're always looked at as a bellwether ahead of the next national elections. The Conservatives did quite poorly. I think they lost around 1,000 local council seats. The Labour Party gained about 500. The more centrist Lib Dems and the Greens independents, they won too. A lot of analysts are wondering, given how bad a run the Tory party, the Conservatives, have had, from Theresa May to Boris Johnson's party scandals and handling of COVID, to Liz Truss nearly sinking the economy with a budget. Should Labour have done better? What do you think? How are you analyzing this kind of what we just saw?
Well, the first thing I want to say is just briefly on Liz Truss, and it is good to be brief on her, as befits her time in office. She was at the coronation, and it's this weird spectacle that I guess an equivalent is you guys having one-term presidents at the inauguration, and I guess it's the equivalent of this, but she's going to be at all of these events. And she was at the fucking coronation for longer than she was prime minister. Like, it was absolutely obscene that she got a ticket. But yeah, the Conservative Party lost 1,061 seats.
Oof.
And there have been a lot of reports that they have encountered on the doorstep a lot of hostility to the legacies left by Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, and that Rishi Sunak hasn't been able to detoxify the immediate legacy of his two predecessors. And you're like, yeah, of course he hasn't, because it was like 6 months ago. Like, amazingly, people in the United Kingdom are able to remember things that happened less than a year ago. And less than a year ago, a lady who, from what I can tell, huffed a bunch of crystal meth, read Margaret Thatcher's Wikipedia page, and then built a policy platform off of it, nearly tanked the British economy and wiped £30 billion off the public purse. So that still continues to damage the Conservative Party. I mean, as to whether Labour should have done better, I mean, there was some sort of hasty expectation management from the Labour Party in the immediate lead up to the local elections, and they were sort of trying to say, well, if the Conservatives lose sort of 600 to 700 seats, that's a good night for us. Obviously, the figure is 1,000, which were some of the harshest predictions that people were saying would happen. I think for Labour, the mood at the moment coming out of the Labour Party is beyond euphoric. And Keir Starmer has said that these local election results are evidence that the party is ready for power. But people who understand these things more than I do have been warning that the results are not completely clear cut. They've got a way to go before they can be confident about that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comparisons to 1997 when Tony Blair had this massive victory, and that was preceded by doing even better in local elections. But boy, my big takeaway from your answer there is, my God, am I jealous that you have an electorate that remembers things that happened 6 months ago. We're working on 30 days, man. Like, like a couple of years ago, Trump was like, yo, storm that Capitol and kill some people. And we're like, people are like, oh, he seems like a decent guy. But I mean, to your broader point of like, okay, what will the Tories do to blunt whatever momentum labor has. It does seem like in the United States, immigration is a big emotional issue for conservatives. As we speak, people in Washington are very concerned about and they're preparing for a potential surge of migrants to our southern border. Because Joe Biden has to get rid of this sort of pandemic era rule that would essentially force everyone to be expelled. But for you guys, I mean, look, the last time I checked, and correct me if this has changed, the UK is an island. You can't just kind of like stroll up to London from another country.
I genuinely, I would love for you to come and explain that to some of the people that live here, Tommy.
Well, help me understand this. How the Tories made this such an issue?
As far as I can tell, there is a section of people in the United Kingdom who believe that the country is connected via airport-style travelators that just bring a ceaseless stream of job-stealing immigrants into the country. It's become... But the key thing with it is that, like the US Republicans, the tail is kind of wagging the dog here. Mm-hmm. The Conservative Party is being led by a small section of its electorate. Conservative voters actually said that a poll of Conservative voters found that stopping the votes was actually the kind of second most important issue to Conservative voters, ahead of cutting NHS waiting times.
So the stop the boats are the migrants who are coming from, I believe, France, crossing the English Channel to the UK.
Yeah, that's right. So people are making crossings of the English Channel from France, and they're sort of they've turned "Stop the Boats" into our caravan of migrants. It's the bogeyman, and the phrase "Stop the Boats," sort of fits into this kind of campaigning pattern of the Tory party and the Brexit campaign. You can boil everything down to 3 words: take back control, stop the boats, get Brexit done. These are the sort of key slogans. And I think Sunak is sort of hoping that stop the boats is his version of that he can sort of animate the Conservative vote. But I'm not sure how it's going to play in terms of winning over swing voters, because ultimately, every element of the country is struggling. You can't see a doctor. There's going to be more train strikes over the weekend as public sector and private sector pay gaps try and sort of. We're going to see more trade strikes basically over the weekend. Mm-hmm. There's the threat of more strikes from the nurses, threat of more strikes from the doctors, because public sector pay is still in real terms to recover from 2008, really. Mm-hmm. That's how long standing a lot of these problems are, and those problems are kind of as prevalent in the private sector. So with the whole country grinding to a halt, I just feel like there's a lot of people that are going to think, why the hell are you talking to me about boats when I can't see a doctor?
Yeah, that seems right. I mean, it is remarkable how much scar tissue there is in both countries, the US and the UK, from 2008 and the financial crisis, and everything that kind of came after. There's this new book out called Johnson at 10. It's about Boris Johnson's time as prime minister. Some of the excerpts are unbelievable. It says he referred to himself as the Führer. It's probably not something I'd call myself. He called himself the King. I think you already have one of those. It describes him as having no vision for how to govern, talks about fights with his wife, his top advisor, Dominic Cummings, this like Karl Rove, Steve Bannon creep. Are these revelations seen as explosive? And do you think there's any chance it will change opinions about Boris Johnson? Because over here, there's a book a minute about Donald Trump with some new revelation, and his approval rating is at 42% in perpetuity.
I don't think this is going to change anybody's minds. I think it is a really valuable... I think ultimately all of these things are really valuable historical documents. So the book's written by a guy called Sir Anthony Seldon, who's been writing about British prime ministers for 40 years. And he's actually a head teacher as well. So the whole thing, it plays like this kind of report card you get when you leave office.
I love that.
And the thing with Boris Johnson is so much of his kind of incompetence is kind of priced in. I get a lot of stick here from various people, including a lot of journalists, for drawing parallels between Johnson and Trump. But there is a huge amount of common ground between the two men. Not just the like repeated uses of racist language, not just the building of their brands through the media and kind of the use of celebrity cultivated by entertainment television that they've then leveraged into political power.
Our countries are both stuck in this weird place where we threw our leaders overboard, Trump and Boris Johnson, but they won't go away. It's like you threw a party, that drunk guy's still there. He keeps turning up the music. He's hitting on your girlfriend. Like, what do we do here? How do we get them to take the hint? Do you have any ideas that we could borrow? Because I think you guys have done a little bit better job, but Rishi Sunak, the current Tory prime minister, hasn't, for example, thrown Johnson out of the party itself.
No, I mean, where possible, he's sort of trying to distance himself from Johnson, which is very difficult to do because he was Boris Johnson's chancellor. So notionally, he was the second most powerful person in that government. So it is extremely difficult for him to distance himself from that. But I think the similarities between the two projects, I mean, which doesn't feel like you should even call it a project, but between the two shit shows, one of the key similarities, I think, is both of them kind of approached a scorched earth policy to their own parties. So either you got in line or you were bounced out. And what that means is they've created sort of power vacuums in the Republican Party and the Conservative Party. And so you've got this situation where, potentially dissenting voices were purged. And so you're now left in a situation where everybody involved in the party was very much signed up and part of it. And so it's very difficult to distance themselves from those leaders. I mean, the only thing that's going to help here, I think, is getting them out of office. But as we've seen in America, you did vote him out. You got rid of him. You survived an attempted coup d'etat. It is weird how often I think, do you remember that time when some Nazis tried to steal America?
Yeah.
It
was bad.
It comes to me in waves.
Me too.
It's a really strange thing.
Late at night, lots of waves. Yeah, it was a terrible thing. And it's deeply frustrating that a big chunk of the country doesn't look at that memory or think about that history and think, that was really bad. Let's not do that again. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. But if you have the kind of apparatus of a media machine, that regardless of, all of those revelations in the Vanity Fair article about Rupert Murdoch and his contempt for Trump didn't stop him from eventually completely signing up to it wholesale. And Trump was this kind of careering freight train that Murdoch forgot he was responsible for setting off from the station. It's the same thing in this country. The Daily Mail, the Sun newspaper, which is a Murdoch paper, they all have done such an aggressive PR job. And even the day Boris actually officially left office, the Sun and the Mail both had headlines to the effect of, how could the Conservative Party do this? So they were trying to take root that sort of betrayal narrative as he was leaving office in an absolute cloud of disgrace, because it's not just the parties that caused Johnson to go. There was also a Conservative called Chris Pincher who'd been accused of sexually harassing various people who worked for the Conservative Party. Yeah. And repeatedly. Johnson was warned about this, and when he was warned about it, he said, Pincher by name, Pincher by nature, and then gave him a fucking job. So it wasn't even just the parties. It was a total kind of cloud of disgrace he was removed from office in. But if you then have newspapers essentially telling the country that this person was turfed out for no good reason, you end up in a situation that you guys are in as a country, where you have this lunatic who mismanaged COVID, caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, then tried to kind of lead a fascist coup, and people are still thinking, well, maybe 2024?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Nish Kumar, that is why Pod Save the UK is so critical, because you are the leading edge of the spear that is going to take down the Murdoch empire. We heard it here first, so tell Coco.
I don't believe he could be killed, Tommy. I don't believe he could be killed.
He's very old. Well, the guy in Succession died. Spoiler alert.
I think because Jesse Armstrong is not just a great writer, but a deeply moral man. And I think he's hoping Logan Roy is some sort of voodoo doll that if he gives a heart attack to it might take down Murdoch.
I'm just going to not comment on that because, Nish, thank you so much. It was great talking with you. And everyone subscribe to Pod Save the UK. It is a fantastic show. We have so many shared problems. I think there are shared solutions. We'll hear about both. But also, you're just going to laugh a lot. So I think we all need to laugh so we don't cry.
Thanks, Tommy. You're the best.
Great talking to you, buddy.
Thanks to Nish Kumar for joining us today. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks to the Calamaris, too.
Thanks to the Calamaris as well.